If you compare beer with bratwurst,
and cheese with wine,
or even whiskey
with donuts,
then we think you can pair all of these delicious drinks with
murder,
conspiracies,
missing persons,
and more.
Drink with us as you feed your craving for true crime and creepy stories.
Hello, hello, hello. We are back. Katie, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. This is my wife, Katie. I'm Jason. And this is Perfectly Paired With, a podcast where my lovely wife tells me a story. And generally, it's a true crime story or conspiracy. And there's always crime in it. So I guess it's all true crime. Except, I don't know, conspiracy wouldn't technically true crime, but unless it's true. Anyway, I get a little detail from her, and I try and pair her story with a drink of some sorts, and we enjoy that beverage while telling you the story. And yeah, so that's what you're in for. Katie, can you give us a little synopsis of what we're in for today?
In the early hours on the morning of August 23rd, 1987, a 6,000-ton cargo train barreled down the tracks toward Little Rock, Arkansas. This mile-long Union Pacific locomotive, which was traveling at a rate of 52 miles an hour, was being controlled by engineer Stephen Schroyer. As the train approached the town of Bryant, Schroyer spotted something strange ahead on the tracks. Reacting, Schroyer put the train's gear in the emergency position and began laying on the horn in order to alert whatever or whoever was in front of him. But whatever he spied lying beneath a green tarp never moved. Unable to be stopped in time, the train ripped across the bodies of two teenage boys. The mysterious circumstances surrounding how the boys got on the tracks are only the genesis of a very bizarre story that, in the least interesting telling, is an unsolved double murder saturated in unanswered questions. But when you explain this story with the most compelling theory, it is a conspiracy involving drugs, a double execution, and a political cover-up with a potential connection to the then governor of Arkansas, Bill Clinton. And as I'm sure we are all aware, Bill Clinton would go on to become the most powerful person in the Western world from 1993 to 2001.
Holy shit. That's crazy. I have never heard this story. I've heard of ties to him as governor, to murders in Arkansas, but never have I looked into what that was. I do know there's a lot of ties to the Clintons.
I didn't realize that, searching up Bill Clinton body count is actually a very
it's a real list.
Common thing. And I was a little surprised by that when I jumped in. And before we start, we do have to thank two individuals who are family friends who recommended this story to us.
Yeah. No, they're awesome. Tina and Mike. Thank you.
Mama Tina. Yeah.
Man. All right, cool. I'm very excited for this. I didn't know that they got ran over by a train. Boy, that's crazy. Well, to lighten the mood on that.
I told Jason Bill Clinton, and he picked a very
appropriate
beverage.
Yeah. I mean, and don't leave yourself out of it. You contributed a bit of the idea. Yeah. She suggested it. She doesn't often give me a suggestion for a drink, but she left it up to me. And, every instinct in me as a man was like, no, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And
it's Bill Clinton.
Deep down inside, I knew she was right, as usual. So.
What'd you pick? Well, what are we going to drink, Jace?
We're going to have some blowjob shots.
Shaking the whipped cream. I'm hopeful that reference lands with our listener base. I'm not sure we have a lot of young listeners, so it should.
Yeah.
I don't know if it needs explanation.
Yeah. If you don't know about that, you are very young, probably, and shouldn't be listening to this podcast anyway.
Just Google
and
Monica
if you are
Lewinsky.
of that age range and you don't know, just go ask your parents. They're like, what the hell are you listening to? All right, cheers.
Cheers. I don't want to say anything about it because no matter what I say, it's going to be inappropriate because it's a blowjob shot. So,
Well, I mean, most of our episodes have you with the, perfectly timed, that's what she said moments.
it's just a very sweet, creamy
Yeah.
sensation in your mouth.
Yeah, there's a lot of cream
That's
there. Yeah, if you don't know what a blowjob shot is, it's what do we got? Amaretto, Irish cream, and
Coffee liqueur.
Coffee liqueur.
Topped with whipped cream.
Yeah. Which I have a question for you, since you used to be a bartender, and you probably don't know. I probably could Google this, but I never will. Is Kahlua technically not a coffee liqueur? I mean, it's kind of like a type, but it says rum and coffee liqueur.
I don't know. I could not answer that question with any level of certainty.
Well, we have a very giant liquor store by us, and so they have a lot of pickings, and it took me a while to make up my mind on what I was going to get, and I just figured I'd ask you. So
I don't know. I have no idea.
Well,
that didn't come up in my training.
Well, maybe one day we'll meet somebody that goes, "Hey, I heard your question."
Or you could send us a message.
Yeah,
but I'll tell you what I do know.
What do you know?
Delicious blowjob shot is perfectly paired with a story that could potentially be connected to a president who will forever be well known
for his blowjobs.
Well, not his.
Well,
somebody else's.
I mean,
it's okay.
Technically, no, we don't need to go into.
Okay, on August.
Way to say that.
On August 22nd, best friends, 18-year-old Don Henry and 17-year-old Kevin Ives, both seniors at Bryant High School in Arkansas, met a group of friends to hang out in a commuter parking lot on a hot summer night in August.
Is that like a bus parking lot?
I'm assuming that's what they got up to in the 80s in Arkansas.
Yeah, they have a whole lot to do.
At around midnight, Don and Kevin went back to Don's house. The pair arrived around 12:15 a.m., at which time Don went inside. After chatting with his dad for a little while, Don grabbed a flashlight and a .22 rifle. You see, even though spotlighting was illegal in Arkansas, the two friends intended to venture out again into the dark to do just that.
Spotlighting?
Yeah, do you want to venture a guess as to what it is?
Shining a light at a train that's coming?
Spotlighting is when you shine the light of a flashlight into the eyes of a deer so that it is transfixed and cannot move.
Oh, and then you shoot it. Oh, I just knew there was trains in the stores.
Yeah.
Figure something was coming.
Nope. They were going to go kill themselves some deer in an illegal way by using a flashlight.
Oh, so it's illegal because it takes the sport out of it.
I don't know why it's illegal.
They don't want people.
But it was.
Well, that's weird. I mean, I'm sure they don't have tags for those deers either.
I'm sure they don't either. So 3 hours later, the bodies of Don and Kevin would be lying on the tracks just 1 mile from Don's family home, covered in a pale green tarp. And it was there that they would ultimately be hit and run over by the train. Now, the train staff would make an emergency call to local and state police at 4:40 a.m. after the train encountered the boys' bodies. In response, police and medical personnel responded to the scene. Using dental records, the bodies of the two boys were identified, and the Henry and Ives families were notified the following Monday. The two bodies were then examined by medical examiner Dr. Fahmy Malik. He ruled that the cause of death for both victims was an accident. Dr. Malik determined that the boys were impaired due to THC intoxication. No, not intoxication, intoxication.
Intoxic. Is that a word?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. You just made
I'm glad
a new
I
one.
caught it. Now, according to him, the two boys smoked an equivalent of 20 marijuana cigarettes. But I have to tell you, when I was like typing this in my ear, like my mind's eye or my mind's ear, he pronounced it marijuana cigarettes.
Probably, especially since he calls them cigarettes. They ain't coming from Camel. We call those joints, guys.
And because of this, both boys were passed out, deep asleep, which is why they did not respond to the train's horn.
Now, as a in my past history, a frequent user of marijuana, there's so many things wrong with this. What this guy said, that just doesn't happen. You know, just fall asleep. You also don't put a fucking tarp over yourself.
There's
like
you will be agreed with later by other like medical professionals, but you're jumping ahead.
Oh, it's already icky with the coroner saying that, because
Yeah.
coroner's technically the highest authority in.
Now, I have to tell you, a medical examiner isn't quite the same as a coroner.
Oh, this isn't the
coroner
coroner
is an
saying it?
elected official. Medical
Sorry.
examiners are appointed, which is important. It's different.
Does it? I thought
Coroners
everything
are
goes
ahead.
to the coroner, though. Like,
Not
so-
necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Mm-mm.
Oh, interesting. I didn't hear what you said because I was too busy.
Disagreeing with Dr. Malik.
That, and also I have so many thoughts. You know, like, and one of them it's just the gruesomeness of being, even a train conductor running over these kids. Like,
Mhm.
it's also that choice. Like, do I stop on top of the body?
Well, he tried
or do
to
I
stop.
just keep? Do I let the
I
train
see.
get past?
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like,
You think about different things than I do.
yeah, I know. I'm weird.
Now,
Or you're
local
weird. All right, go ahead.
local authorities responsible for the investigation into the events of that early morning never questioned the medical examiner's determination. In fact, there was just a general feeling that perhaps the boys' actions were suicidal in nature. But there were people who never believed these early explanations. Both sets of parents adamantly questioned these conclusions and decided to hire a private investigator. And believe me, they had good reason to. For one, the hospital where both of the boys' bodies were examined kept absolutely no records of their presence there.
Whoa.
When asked about the lack of records, one hospital clerk simply shared that, quote, that was why the families were never billed, end quote.
Okay, bitch.
Also, why would you bill families after their sons were brutally either killed by a train or through nefarious circumstances got their bodies run over by a train? I just think that's something we shouldn't do
No,
societally.
no.
Let's just make that a rule.
I never thought about that. I'll bet you anything families get bills after.
Not these families. Now, also, one of the EMTs who had responded to the scene at the tracks after the boys' bodies were struck commented that
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about it again. I promise I won't interrupt too much.
that's
But
okay.
why did they go to the hospital?
I'm sure that's where the bodies are taken. I don't think they're automatically taken to a medical examiner's, like what do you call the place for dead bodies?
Morgue.
A morgue.
Morgue.
I'm wondering if
That's weird. I don't know. Like, these bodies can't be intact whatsoever.
You know, I came across another source that said the bodies were actually lying between the tracks. So to me, that means that they were like placed in between. So they weren't actually on the tracks. And they have enough of the remains to make some conclusions later on. So I don't think the bodies were necessarily completely decimated or destroyed. I think the fact that this story was so long ago, and since the like immediate determination was accident, that a lot of information wasn't really made overtly available. And so you're kind of working with like fragments. So if the bodies were laying between the tracks, like I had one source say, then maybe they wouldn't have been completely destroyed. And there would have been an idea that, well, let's get them to a hospital and see if there's any life-saving measures that can be performed.
Interesting. I mean, maybe this is just wives' tale. I always thought if you're in between the tracks, you actually won't get ran over by the train because there's nothing that goes that low.
Can an 18-year-old body be that low to be completely between the tracks?
Yeah.
I don't know
if
what
you're just laying down.
What is the differential between the bottom of the train?
Well, the track
You and I
has to be
talk
like
like
6
we know.
inches. You've seen a train track. I mean, you've
Not
seen
up close, not from
even the metal part.
Yeah, but the
Because
difference
that sits on top of the tire or the tie
understand
tracks,
how it works.
and that has to be like 4 to 6 inches, and then the wheels go across, and there's like the space in between until the top. Like there has to be at least like
Where's
a foot
Sheldon
or two.
Cooper when you need
Yeah,
him?
seriously.
The expert on trains. I don't know.
No, sorry.
Anyway,
Squirrel.
Also, one of the EMTs who had responded to the scene at the tracks after the boys' bodies were struck commented that it looked like the boys' blood lacked oxygen, with the implication that the boys were already dead when the train hit them.
I was going to ask if there was anything that showed whether they were dead on the tracks already.
Well, this EMT seems to indicate such. And the pale green tarp that was covering the bodies never belonged to either boy or any members of their family. Another inconsistency prompting the parents to seek investigative support was that despite all 4 train crew members reporting that they saw a tarp covering the bodies the night of the incident, the police officers who searched the scene afterward denied there ever being a tarp in the area. According to the engineer of the train, Schroyer, the police outwardly questioned the tarp's existence altogether.
Jeez.
As part of this private investigation into their sons' deaths, a second opinion on the deaths of their sons was issued by a Dr. James Garriott out of San Antonio. And it's going to match with our own Dr. Jason's opinion. And this is what Dr. Garriott concluded. First, it is unlikely that any amount of THC would have had the alleged effects that Dr. Malik described. In fact, there was another doctor out of North Carolina who issued the following opinion. Malik's conclusions were very bizarre. He had never heard of anyone becoming unconscious due to marijuana intoxication. But the investigators involved seemed completely unmoved, so much so that Saline County Sheriff James H. Steed Jr. commented in an article run by the Benton Courier that there was nothing to suggest the boys died as a result of anything other than a strange accident. Now, that was too much for Kevin's mom, Linda. Very unhappy with the sheriff's comments, she decided to publish her own letter in the Benton Courier, criticizing Sheriff Steed. In response to Linda's letter, the sheriff proffered a deal. If the parents would withdraw their criticism of the investigation and offer support for him, I believe re-election could have been around the corner, they would get the investigation they desired. So it was 5 months after Don and Kevin's deaths, both sets of parents held a press conference. My assumption is that this was when they held up their end of the deal, because the next day the investigation was reopened and a new prosecutor, Richard Garrett, ordered the boys' bodies to be exhumed for a second autopsy. Now, this second autopsy, which was performed by Dr. Joseph Burton, concluded that the boys had smoked maybe 1 to 3 marijuana cigarettes.
What was the count of the other?
20.
I don't even know if that's possible. Like I don't think that's even like, I don't know. Snoop Dogg, maybe.
Willie Nelson?
Willie, but even so, 20. That's insane.
Well, this doctor furthermore concluded that at the time of impact with the train, one of the boys was already dead and the other was most likely unconscious. Now, as part of the second investigation, Sheriff Steed was supposed to send the boys' clothing to the FBI for analysis. But without explanation, in reality, Steed chose to send these crucial pieces of evidence to the Arkansas State Crime Lab, which begs several questions, starting with why? With the investigation being reopened, some interesting clues pointing to a possible person of interest were revealed. For one, a man wearing military fatigues was spotted near the train tracks 1 week before the incident. This man was said to have been acting in a very suspicious manner. And when a police officer, Officer Danny Allen, responded to the area to question the man opened fire.
Wow.
So tell me you don't want the police around without telling me you don't want the police around.
Right. Yeah, that's quite aggressive.
Then, on the night of the incident, witnesses reported seeing a man, once again wearing military fatigues. Fatigues? I don't know why I say it like that.
But then I'm like,
how else
fatigues?
do you say it?
Fatigues. But fatigue is a word on its own.
Fatigues.
Uniform.
Okay. He was walking down the road less than 200 yards from the spot where the boys' bodies were struck by the train. This man was never located after the incident.
Of course.
Now, at some point since reopening the investigation, the clothes worn by both boys when they were hit by the train have been re-examined. Now, I'm not sure if this was done by the State Crime Lab or sometime after the clothes were supposed to have been sent to the FBI, but the clothes revealed further clues as to what happened that night. Don Henry's shirt was analyzed by an expert pathologist, and it was concluded that there were cuts in the material, and that these cuts indicated that Don had been stabbed, and that Don would have been already deceased before encountering the train. This pathologist also concluded that these telltale cuts in the shirt should have been seen in the autopsy photos, begging the question, why weren't they noticed earlier? Or why were they purposely ignored?
Weird. It's telltale.
I think that's how I wrote it, but sometimes I just get in the groove and I just words say,
yeah,
I just pronounce words.
You make your E's an A every now and then too, or your A's an E. Like bag, you say bag sometimes.
Yeah, I'd like a bagel.
A bagel. Colorado's supposed to have natives are supposed to have no accents at all.
Well, if anybody wants to hear my theory about how I come from a different timeline, we can go into that on a different episode. I'll play some paper, scissors, rock with you, and I can explain why I say it that way.
I don't know if you've ever explained that to me. For another time.
It was also determined that there was a pattern injury to Kevin's face. This facial abrasion was roughly the same size as the butt plate of the boy's rifle, which was spotted close to the bodies next to the tracks, leaving many to believe that Kevin was hit in the head with the butt of the rifle, leaving him thought to be dead, but definitely unconscious when his body was placed on the tracks.
The rifle, the fact that they went out to do the spotlighting, they had a rifle with them. If they were so depressed and wanted to kill themselves together, they could have just done it with the rifle, which would have made way more sense than getting ran over by tons of steel.
Correct. Based on these findings, a grand jury reversed the cause of death from accident to homicide. There is a prevailing theory as to what happened to Don and Kevin the night they were murdered. And this theory is that they witnessed a drug drop of some sort and that to silence them, they were killed. And it's through this theory that the former 2-term president of the United States has been linked to the death of these 2 teenage boys.
So, I think I might know a little bit of how seeing drug drop and all that might tie into Clinton. I don't know the full story, so I'm hoping you're going to give us a lot of details on it, or at least some, well, more than what I'm going to say, because my memory is not great. But I'm just remembering reading something about Clinton being tied to I think it was like a drug ring or something. But anyway, I think it was cocaine that would go through Arkansas. And I don't know if there's proof, but there is a lot of speculation that Clinton was letting it happen at the very least, if not involved in it.
Well, cocaine is going to come up. A lot of speculative pieces of information are going to be discussed.
I was remembering right. Yes.
I think you're on the right track.
Cool.
Now, this link to Bill Clinton starts with Clinton's dubious ties to the original medical examiner, Dr. Malik. You see, despite the fact that Dr. Malik, his own staff had been accusing him for years of, quote, keeping outdated crime lab stationery, end quote, so that he could use the stationery to falsify findings in autopsy reports right before certain cases went to trial, Dr. Malik's position remained completely secure. In fact, in May of 1992, the LA Times published an article about the then presumptive Democratic presidential nominee, Bill Clinton, in which they highlight Clinton's refusal to dismiss Dr. Malik as a medical examiner in Arkansas.
Holy shit. So the LA Times are calling out Clinton while everybody's assuming he's going to be running for president.
Yes. Now, another Democratic politician, so a Democratic politician from Arkansas, was quoted in the same article as saying that Dr. Malik was, quote, sort of protected by the governor and the state crime laboratory board, end quote.
Ooh, which is the lab that they sent it to instead of the FBI.
Oh, and by the way, this board was appointed by Governor Clinton himself.
Of course.
Now, Clinton, along with the board, refused to fire Malik despite more than 4 years of public criticism. At various points, Dr. Malik had testified erroneously in criminal cases. On more than one occasion, Dr. Malik had his rulings reversed when juries and outside pathologists questioned his findings.
How would that come about? You said rulings?
I'm sure the conclusions that he made presented in court would be reversed. Like they would be changed in formal documentation because the juries were like, that doesn't make sense. So bring in somebody else, and different pathologists would say that actually isn't correct.
So they're trying or there's a trial going on for a crime, and his findings are being used by the state, and they get reversed during the from the trial.
Yep, because there was testimony that contradicted what he had to say.
And there was multiple ones of these.
At one point, Dr. Malik even misread a medical chart and wrongly accused a deputy of killing someone.
Holy, what?
So he's not good at his job.
But yet,
now
he keeps his job.
There is a reason why Clinton would be eager to protect Dr. Malik. Clinton's own mother, who was a nurse, anesthetist, was suspected of playing a role in the death of a patient. That's how it was spelled. Anesthetist. I'm assuming it's the nurse connected to the anesthesiologist.
That's what I was thinking.
That's what I've inferred, and I am so confident
we'll
that
have to
I'm
ask
correct.
our nurse friends down the street.
Yeah.
See what they say.
But it was Dr. Malik who ruled that Clinton's mother was in no way responsible. Now, 3 weeks before Clinton announced his presidential candidacy, Clinton pushed Dr. Malik to resign. Yes. However, only to appoint him to a high-paying position at the State Department once Clinton was elected.
Oh.
So I need you not to be in the spotlight while I'm running for the presidency, but I promise to take care of you when I'm elected. Although that's not how Clinton sounds. I don't have a Clinton voice in my back pocket.
Let me see if I don't know if I can find it.
I do not have sexual relations.
Yeah, you got to.
There's your inspiration.
Yeah, and you have to get the thumb involved, nope, I can't do it. I'm not even going to try. I'll make him Mexican. But it also maybe explains why this doctor was so willing to falsify information that he's giving over and over on these cases and make you question, are all those cases tied to Bill? Or is he such a fuck up that Bill was like, I'll save your job. I need you to keep quiet on a few things that might come up in the future. And in return, not only will I save your job, I'll give you a new job.
Well,
because I am going to run for president and I am going to win because I know all the people that decide who wins.
Well, you're definitely bridging us to our next topic.
Please excuse that door creak sound. Our son decided to come in and my door is very creaky to our podcast room. So I threw some WD-40 on that guy and we shouldn't have that happen again. So Catherine, you were saying.
Yeah, I was saying that you seem to be in the vein of where we were going to go next. So this appointing of Dr. Malek to a high-paying position leaves many wondering, could this protection of Dr. Malek really be because of the doctor's ruling regarding Clinton's mother? Or could Clinton have other reasons to want to keep Dr. Malek happy and quiet, like his role in covering up the murder of 2 teenage boys? From here on out, I will be describing a theory that was put forth in a documentary called The Clinton Chronicles and is only an alleged theory. Let me be clear. This is a theory presented by somebody else. And I am...
A conspiracy theory?
Yes.
Excellent.
And I am by no means saying that these individual pieces of evidence or facts that were presented conclusively show Clinton's involvement. But if you are at all skeptical or leery about the accusations, perhaps you could ask Jeffrey Epstein his thoughts on the likelihood that Bill Clinton could be involved in a suspicious death.
Or any of the other, I can't remember what the body count is at right now, but I think it's in the 20s.
Now, every good conspiracy theory starts somewhere. And this one starts with a man named Dan Lasater. Lasater was an Arkansas bond dealer who also happened to be a friend and campaign contributor to Bill Clinton. They were such good friends, in fact, that Clinton awarded Lasater with a $20 million bond to install a police radio system for the state police.
A $20 million bond to install a police radio station.
Yep. So bonds are different than like payments in that you can't collect them right away. But after a certain amount of time, you can collect that amount of money plus interest from whatever governmental agency promised it to you.
It's not like a grant where they just give it to you.
No, a bond is different.
A bond is, you have to spend the money first. So he could do all the work and then present the receipts and, for lack of a better term, and get the money back.
That's how I understand it. Yes.
Which also those receipts can be, we had $1,000 an hour for labor.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, Lasater also happened to have been under investigation by law enforcement in Arkansas for the dealing of cocaine.
What?
According to a DEA file on Lasater, the attorney general in Santa Fe, New Mexico, was looking at Lasater for narcotics trafficking and organized crime. In fact, Lasater was indicted by a federal grand jury for conspiring with Roger Clinton, who is the brother to Bill, and others for selling cocaine.
Holy shit.
And after being offered a plea agreement, Lassiter pled guilty to possession with the intent to distribute and was paroled after a 1-year prison term.
Wow. Are you kidding?
No.
1-year prison term and he gets paroled.
Yeah.
And obviously he had enough for distributing. I'm guessing it wasn't like that line, the first line you cross is like, oh, you were just a few,
I think he was the sacrificial lamb, because if you get tied to Roger Clinton, you're going to take the fall. You know what I mean?
Okay. So
again, this is a theory put forth by somebody else in the Clinton.
Are you going to tell us whether he does get, he did get the spot when President Clinton became president.
Nope. So this is a different person. So Dr. Malik absolutely gets appointed. This is...
Oh, Lassiter
is a friend, a campaign contributor.
Oh, he's the Bond guy.
He's the Bond guy.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. I had too much to drink, so I didn't follow.
Now, Lassiter was not the only powerful person connected to the Clintons who has ties to drug trafficking. In fact, when Don Tyson of the Tyson Chicken Corporation moved Tyson into Arkansas, Don Tyson was a campaign donor to Bill Clinton, who, in return, received millions of dollars in tax breaks from Clinton himself. The Tyson Chicken Company also received very favorable, relaxed environmental conditions in which they could run their corporation. Hillary Clinton made roughly $100,000 in profit after investing just $1,000 with the help of Tyson Foods counselor James Blair.
Well,
I say all of this to say that the Clintons were tied to people who probably had their hands in drug trafficking.
Gee. So even Tyson, the owners of this company,
so
are they
as presented in the
speculated they have ties
Chronicles, according to the USDEA, Don Tyson was also tied to drug trafficking.
Jeez. Weird. Why do you need to do that? He's slaying chickens left and right.
Now, the Clinton Chronicles postulates that during those early morning hours of August 23rd, Don and Kevin witnessed an aircraft that was flying from Florida, transporting cocaine into Springdale, Arkansas. When the two teenage boys were discovered, the theory suggests their hands were tied and then they were, for all intents and purposes, executed. Then, to cover up what actually killed the boys, Don and Kevin were placed on the tracks and covered with a tarp. I even discovered a source that named 2 veteran sheriff's deputies who could potentially be the ones responsible for killing the teenagers and then attempting to cover up their actions. Jay Campbell and Kirk Lane, implying that not only did Clinton have ties to people who were involved in drug trafficking, that there was infrastructure in Arkansas that enabled this drug trafficking to take place, ensured that this drug trafficking could take place, and it included people in law enforcement.
Okay.
Then, Dr. Malik, who clearly lived in the pocket of Bill Clinton, made the official conclusion that the boys were incapacitated due to marijuana cigarettes, despite the fact, and this is interesting, the crime lab never actually tested for a concentration of marijuana.
I was going to ask that, and I was a little worried I missed the detail where you said their blood labs came back, which takes a long time, and it sounds like he came up with this theory pretty quick. And
it turns out they never actually even tested for it.
How do you even know? And then he has a fucking number on the amount of
20
cigarettes that they smoked. First of all, don't call them cigarettes because no one is distributing those until now. And second, I mean, even now, I mean, yeah, that guy was able to say, no, I was probably closer to like 4 to 6, I think is what
1
he
to
said.
3.
1 to 3. Jeez.
All right, Dr.
Even
Malik, slow
even
your
I'm
roll.
pumping the numbers there a little bit. It just must be
How
something
much
you do.
did Clinton pay you?
Right. It's just a natural thing. You exaggerate everything. And I'm glad you said that, because I was like, how did they even do tests for marijuana?
Not according to the Clinton Chronicles.
And he picked, like, of all the drugs, he picked
he
the
couldn't
one.
draw attention to cocaine.
Well, and
He
cocaine
didn't want people talking
cocaine
about
won't make you go to
it. No,
sleep
it would
either.
make them just run around the track
Yeah,
like little
they're
rabbits.
just try and beat the train. They'll race
Hurry,
it.
shine a light in their eyes. See if we can transfix them.
Yeah. That was my spotlighting. You spotlight the train, the conductor. It's like shining a laser at airplanes. Yeah, he could have picked I don't know, Special K or fucking any downer. He's a doctor. He should have known.
He's not a very good doctor.
Outside
so maybe
of
he didn't know.
marijuana. Dude obviously never tried marijuana.
Now, according to the same documentary, more deaths followed those of Don and Kevin, hinting at a pretty significant cover-up, one that could only be done by a very, very powerful person, like a governor.
Like the most powerful man in the state.
In April of 1988, a man named Keith Coney allegedly told his mother that, quote, he knew too much about the deaths of the boys and that he was scared for his own life. Keith would ultimately have his neck slashed, and as he attempted to flee on his motorcycle, he would ultimately die after he crashed his motorcycle into the back of a truck.
Because of loss of blood.
It just sounds like a scene from like a really bad action movie. To his neck, and then he makes it to his motorcycle, and then he's like fleeing, and there's blood flying from his neck, and some gets in his eye, and then
I don't know why you're saying that's a bad one. That's a good
it's
action
every
movie.
Jason Statham action
I was
movie
just
ever.
thinking Jason Statham. Except he'd make it out. He'd hold it the
Yes,
whole
he
time
wouldn't
and
die.
drive the motorcycle with one hand.
He would drive the motorcycle with his knees while he tied a very fancy
tourniquet.
scarf to his neck. Then a friend of the boys, Bonnie Bearden, disappeared. Booney, actually, I think I wrote it Bonnie, but I think it's Booney. His body was never found. In November of 1988, a man named Keith McCaskill would claim to have knowledge about what happened to Don and Kevin, but Keith would never have the opportunity to testify for any grand jury. Before Keith was murdered, after being stabbed 113 times, I'm saying this wrong. This is just one long sentence. So he's going to be stabbed 113 times. That's how he dies. But before that happens, he told friends and family goodbye as though he thought his life was in danger.
Oh, geez.
Another man, Gregory Collins, too, would claim to have knowledge about what happened the night the boys were murdered, but he would die from a gunshot wound to his face before he could be called to testify. Then in April of 1989, yet another individual with alleged knowledge of what happened to Don and Keith would unexpectedly die. The body of Jeff Rhodes was found in the city dump. His cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head.
Huh. What did they rule it as? Suicide?
I don't know, maybe. Actually, I think all of these are just solved. Then in July of 1989, Richard Winters would be killed from a gunshot blast before he could testify after claiming to have knowledge as well. Which makes me want to go, people, stop saying you know what happened to these boys.
Seriously. Or yeah, let's do the hearing under wraps. But if it is tied to somebody like the governor,
you go to the police and you say you have knowledge, and then all of a sudden your throat's slashed.
Yeah. Or if it gets past like the good cops and they get it up to the good judge, well, all the judges can check out what's happening and be like, hey, this trial's about to happen.
And if I didn't already sound like a broken record, in June of 1990, a man named Jordan Kettleson died from a gunshot wound after claiming to have knowledge about what happened. And I can only think that if the governor of Arkansas was contemplating running for the presidency of the United States, that tying up any loose ends connected to these deaths could potentially have been very, very important to him.
Is there any like just ties with maybe what these people that, you know, suddenly died, what they
Had
were
to
going to
say.
say,
I didn't find
whether
anything.
it did tie to Clinton or not? It's just really, really fishy that it all has to do with this one case. And what's the count now? 10? Are
It's
we
ridiculous.
at like 10 guys right now?
I don't think, including the two, maybe.
What? That doesn't happen.
Right.
It's
just
no longer.
Statistically, it shouldn't
It's no
happen.
longer a coincidence.
Even in Arkansas, where things are a little bit weird.
Yeah, it's a little wild west out there.
The Clinton Chronicles, again, that documentary goes on to present that once elected to the presidency, White House counsel Mark Fabian put Linda Ives, the mother of one of our victims, on Bill Clinton's enemy list. And I can't help but wonder, if Bill Clinton had nothing to do with the death of her son, why on earth would this woman warrant being put on the president's enemy list?
Can you elaborate what that means?
I have no idea what it means.
Enemy list?
I would love to
How was it
one
discovered?
day beyond that.
Like how?
Everything is presented in this documentary. Like I said, from the moment that I started saying this is the theory presented, I'm just presenting it as it is. And I tried to find corroborating evidence, and I found several articles corroborating the mysterious deaths of all those individuals. I would have no idea how to go about finding President Clinton's enemy list. I'm sure it's like Jeffrey Epstein, crossed out. Monica Lewinsky, question mark, question mark, question mark. Right? But I wouldn't know how to corroborate that. So I'm literally just presenting what this documentary presented, and I find it fascinating.
Anytime I think of an enemy list, I think of good old Billy Madison and who's that? Who's the actor that plays? Oh, geez, it's totally spacing any of the movies. He's in all of Adam
Schneider.
Sandler. No, not
Rob
Schneider.
Schneider?
It's he's the frog looking dude. Goofy eyes.
I have no idea.
Well, this is bad radio right here. I bet they love listening to me trying to remember.
Say
his name.
one more time.
Anyway, there's a character in that movie that Billy Madison, he bullied him in school, and he's trying to actually pass his get his diploma, high school diploma, and he I don't know, needs this guy's help or something. And anyway, he makes amends with the guy, and then the whole wrap up of the movie, Billy is saved by somebody, and then you find out this guy, and then you see his list of people that he's gonna take out, and he's putting on lipstick at the same time. He's a psycho.
Okay.
Essentially. So I just imagine anybody that has a kill list or, an enemy list, they've got some other weird freaky fetish as well, like putting on lipstick. So that's probably what Bill was doing, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
There's
My favorite Bill Clinton is
painting,
the SNL
There's
Bill
the
Clinton.
painting of him in a dress in Epstein's home.
In a blue dress, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. What were you saying about SNL?
My favorite Bill Clinton is SNL Bill Clinton, because I'm a little bit too young to know him as like the president of the United States. That's before I was old enough to like pay attention to that stuff.
Mhm.
And so like I knew my family didn't like him because he was on the opposite side. And I knew what he looked like, but I wasn't introduced to Bill Clinton until I started watching SNL after George W. Bush took over.
Yeah.
And that Bill Clinton is very endearing.
He was actually on SNL?
No.
Or it was characters that they were...
whoever played him.
Do you remember
I feel like
who?
it's Will Ferrell.
I don't know, actually. Because I know he did Bush, but I think he might have
maybe I
done-
am thinking that
Yeah.
he did Bush. No,
He might have done Clinton too.
whoever made Clinton, whoever was Clinton on SNL, made him this very goofy, likable human being. Which, based on this, I don't think he was that in real life. So,
Well, no, he was. That's
a
why
goofy, likable human being.
maybe not goofy so much, but he was a
I like the
likable
goof.
human being because he got far. I mean, he got up to governor and then
All the way to Epstein Island. He
all
got
the
real
way to
far.
Epstein Island, and and then got past all that. And I mean, he had to have had the supreme talent of talking his way out of anything,
Yeah.
except for admitting to the nation that you got a blowjob in the
And not
Oval Office.
The kind of blowjobs we took at the beginning.
Was it actually the Oval Office though?
That's exactly where it
It
happened.
was okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't a side office.
No.
I guess the president wouldn't go to a side office.
No,
That
he
was
would
a
lock
dumb
the door to
question.
the Oval
That was
Office.
a-
No.
He could have any office he wants, though. He could be like, "Hey, this is my office now." Kick some guy out. Anyway, go.
Now, we may never know what Don Henry and Kevin Ives wound up shining their flashlight on that early August morning when they went out spotlighting, intending to hunt innocent deer. And if indeed anything in this theory that was presented by the Clinton Chronicles is actually true, we most likely will never know, considering the powerful people it would implicate.
Mhm.
But a lesson can be learned from this story. Be careful what you shine your light on, because depending on what that light reveals, someone intending to be the hunter might just wind up the hunted.
Again, this is somebody else's opinion, not ours. We're not shining the light on it.
Yeah, but that's one heck of an outro.
Cheers.